What's your rank again, ma'am? Coffee officer? Commander Luke Harrow's question hangs in the air of the war room like a grenade with the pin already pulled. 15 senior officers sit around the tactical display table, shoulders squared, eyes locked forward. But when Luke delivers that line, they crack. Lieutenant Briggs snorts first, then Commander Voss. Within 3 seconds, the room erupts into laughter that echoes off the reinforced concrete walls of Coronado Naval Base's most secure briefing facility. Tessa Cade stands at the back of the room holding a gray clipboard against her gray blazer. She doesn't flinch, doesn't blush, doesn't offer the nervous smile that would give Luke and his audience the satisfaction they're hunting for. Her face remains as still as the surface of a lake before dawn. She simply adjusts her grip on the clipboard, fingers positioned in a way that would look random to anyone who wasn't paying attention. 3 fingers on the metal clip, thumb tucked beneath, index finger extended along the edge. It's 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and the war room is doing what it does best, running operational briefings that will never appear in any public record. The walls are lined with screens displaying satellite imagery, drone feeds, and classified mission parameters that could reshape foreign policy if they ever leaked. Admiral Jonathan Pike sits at the head of the table, silver hair cropped military short, jaw tight with the kind of authority that comes from 30 years of making decisions that cost lives or save them. He doesn't stop the laughter, doesn't correct Luke. He just glances at Tessa with the expression of a man who has already decided she doesn't belong here and is waiting for her to realize it herself. Luke leans back in his chair, arms crossed over a chest decorated with ribbons that tell stories of valor Tessa will never be allowed to mention in polite company. He's 38, built like someone who still runs the obstacle course every morning just to prove he can, and he carries himself with the casual arrogance of a man who has never been told no by anyone who mattered. His eyes sweep the room, collecting nods of approval like a comedian working a club. When he's satisfied that everyone is on his side, he turns back to Tessa. Seriously though, we appreciate the admin support, but maybe you'd be more comfortable grabbing us coffee while the adults talk strategy. More laughter. Sharper this time. Captain Reed, sitting 2 seats down from Luke, actually slaps the table. The sound cracks through the room like a starter pistol. Tessa doesn't move. She breathes in for 4 seconds, holds for 4, exhales for 4. It's a rhythm so subtle that no one in the room registers it as technique. They see a woman standing awkwardly at the back of a briefing she clearly doesn't understand, frozen by embarrassment. They don't see the combat breathing pattern that Spec Ops teams drill until it becomes as automatic as a heartbeat. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. The kind of breathing that keeps your hands steady when the world is ending around you. She sets the clipboard on the table behind her. Her tablet sits next to it, screen dark, corners reinforced with black rubber that's seen better days. She taps the screen once to wake it, and her fingers move across the glass without hesitation. No hunting for keys, no correcting typos. 3 taps. Swipe left, 2 more taps. The movements are precise, economical. The kind of muscle memory that comes from typing the same sequences hundreds of times until your fingers remember better than your brain does. On the main display screen at the front of the room, a red progress bar flickers into existence for exactly 0.3 seconds. It's so fast that no one catches it except the audience watching this unfold. The bar reads, "System authentication required." Then it vanishes, replaced by the same satellite feed that was there before. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Ramos sits at the technical station along the left wall, surrounded by monitors that feed him data from every sensor and camera on base. He's 56 years old, with the kind of weathered face that comes from 28 years of naval service and a hairline that retreated decades ago. He's seen every kind of officer the Navy produces, the good ones, the bad ones, and the ones who mistake authority for wisdom. Right now, he's watching Tessa's hands move across that tablet, and his eyebrows pull together just slightly. Something about her keystroke pattern doesn't match the profile of a logistics contractor. The rhythm is too fast, too confident. He makes a mental note but says nothing. Luke isn't finished. He never is. Men like Luke measure their value by how much space they take up in a room, how many people laugh at their jokes, how often they can remind everyone that they matter. I mean, don't get me wrong, he continues, voice dripping with false kindness that makes the mockery worse. We need people like you. Someone's got to handle the paperwork while we handle the real work. But maybe next time they send someone who actually understands tactics? Tessa finally looks up from her tablet. Her eyes meet Luke's for exactly 2 seconds. She doesn't glare, doesn't narrow her gaze in challenge. She just looks at him with the kind of calm that comes from knowing something he doesn't. Then she looks back down at her screen. Petty Officer Hayes, 24 years old and new enough to the SEAL community that he still thinks integrity matters more than politics, sits across from Commander Voss. He doesn't laugh. He watches Tessa stand there absorbing the humiliation like someone taking cover under fire, and something about it bothers him. He's seen enough locker room cruelty to recognize the pattern. One person gets marked as weak and everyone else piles on because it's easier than being the next target. He keeps his face neutral, but his jaw tightens. Admiral Pike clears his throat, the universal signal for, let's move on. He taps the table to bring up the next slide, a tactical map of a coastal region that definitely isn't Yemen, but probably is, showing red zones marked hostile and blue zones marked questionable at best. Gentlemen, our window for the SAR operation is 36 hours. Weather window closes at 2100 Thursday. After that, we're looking at sea states that make extraction impossible. Luke leans forward, suddenly all business, the comedian switching back to operator mode. Admiral, if I may, our preliminary recon shows 3 potential LZs. I recommend Alpha Site, coordinates 347902 by 11845, clear sight lines, minimal civilian presence, and... Tessa's fingers move across her tablet again. She's running the math in her head, converting Luke's coordinates into nautical miles, cross-referencing them against tide tables and known patrol routes. The numbers don't line up. Alpha Site puts them 1,800 meters from the nearest safe exfil point. In hostile territory with wounded personnel, that's the difference between a rescue and a recovery mission. Her screen now shows the error in red text. Alpha Site exfil distance exceeds safe parameters by 47%. Recommend Bravo or Charlie alternatives. But her screen faces her. No one else sees it. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't raise her hand like a student who spotted the teacher's mistake. She just adds a note to her file and continues listening. CTA 1. Tessa sits alone at the back table, invisible to everyone who matters. No one offered her a seat at the main briefing circle. No one asked her opinion. If you've ever been underestimated just because of how you look, hit that like button. Let's see who else knows this feeling. And if you want to support stories where the quiet ones win, the thanks button helps us keep going. Lieutenant Briggs, sitting directly behind Luke like a loyal shadow, leans back in his chair and crosses his arms over a chest that looks like it was carved from granite. He's the physical enforcer of this group, the guy who doesn't need to say much because his presence says it for him. When Tessa walked in earlier, he deliberately didn't move his chair to give her room to pass. She had to angle sideways between the wall and his shoulder, and he made sure she felt how much space he was taking up. Now, as the briefing continues, he stretches his legs out under the table, blocking the aisle that leads to the back of the room. It's such a casual gesture that it barely registers as intentional. Just a guy getting comfortable, except it means Tessa is effectively boxed in. Can't move to the front of the room without asking him to move. Can't leave without making a scene. It's a small power play, the kind that doesn't leave marks but reminds you exactly where you stand in the hierarchy. Commander Voss pulls out his phone under the table, angles it to capture Tessa in frame, and snaps a photo. The shutter sound is muted, but Tessa hears it anyway. She doesn't react, doesn't glance up. She knows what's coming next because she's seen this pattern play out in a dozen different contexts. Men who need an audience for their cruelty don't just insult you to your face, they document it, share it, turn it into a bonding ritual with other men who are too insecure to stand alone. 30 seconds later, phones around the room buzz with notifications. Signal, the encrypted messaging app that every operator uses when they want to talk without leaving a trail. Voss just uploaded the photo to the team group chat with a caption, "Support staff trying to play tactician." Within a minute, 4 officers have reacted with laughing emojis. Luke sees the notification and grins, giving Voss a subtle nod of approval. Tessa adjusts the bandage on her left wrist. It's beige medical tape, the kind you buy at any pharmacy, wrapped around her wrist and disappearing up under the cuff of her blazer. She told the security checkpoint it was from a kitchen accident. They didn't question it. Why would they? She's just a contractor. She peels back one corner of the bandage to check the adhesive, and for just a moment, less than 2 seconds, the edge of something dark shows against her skin. It's not a bruise. The pattern is too deliberate, too geometric. Chief Ramos, still monitoring his screens, happens to glance over at that exact moment. He squints, tries to get a better look. But Tessa has already pressed the bandage back down, and the moment passes. Admiral Pike is mid-sentence explaining supply chain logistics for the SAR op when he stops. Just stops, mid-word. He's looking at Tessa, or more specifically, at the way she's standing. There's something about her posture that doesn't match her paperwork. She's not slouching, not shifting her weight from foot to foot the way civilians do when they're uncomfortable. She's standing in what the military calls parade rest, feet shoulder-width apart, hands clasped loosely behind her back, weight distributed evenly. It's so natural that it doesn't look deliberate, but Pike has been in the Navy long enough to recognize muscle memory when he sees it. He leans toward his aide, a young lieutenant commander named Foster who handles personnel files. Pike keeps his voice low. "Where did we source her from?" Foster taps his tablet, pulls up Tessa's file. "Logistics contractor, sir. Civilian. No prior service listed." Pike frowns, looks at Tessa again, then back at Foster. "You sure about that?" "File says so, sir." But Pike's instincts are telling him something different. He's spent 3 decades reading people, and the woman standing at the back of his war room moves like someone who learned to stand still under pressure. He makes a mental note to have Foster dig deeper, then returns his attention to Luke's briefing. Luke is in his element now, using a laser pointer to highlight targets on the map, speaking with the confident rhythm of someone who believes his own expertise is unquestionable. He's describing approach vectors and contingency plans, and most of it is solid. Most of it. But there's a math error buried in his timeline, a miscalculation of fuel consumption that could leave his team stranded 40 nautical miles from their carrier. It's the kind of mistake that happens when you're so confident in your own competence that you skip the double check. Tessa sees it immediately. She's already cross-referenced his numbers against standard fuel burn rates for the helos he's planning to use. The error is right there in black and white on her screen. But she doesn't interrupt, doesn't raise her hand, doesn't offer a correction that would make Luke look bad in front of his peers. She just saves the data to her file and adds a timestamp. If someone asks her later, she'll have the receipts. But right now, correcting him would only paint a bigger target on her back. Captain Reed, sitting 3 seats down from Luke, is watching Tessa with the lazy focus of a cat watching a mouse. He's the saboteur of the group, the guy who doesn't need to be loud or obvious about his cruelty. He just waits for opportunities. Right now, he's noticing how carefully Tessa has arranged her materials on the back table. Clipboard on the left, tablet in the center, a slim folder on the right. Everything lined up with the kind of precision that suggests she needs order to feel in control. Reed waits until everyone's attention is locked on the main screen. Then he shifts in his chair, reaches back as if stretching his shoulders, and his elbow just happens to catch the edge of Tessa's folder. It slides off the table and hits the floor with a slap that turns heads. Papers scatter across the tiles, printouts of logistics data, supply chain manifests, nothing classified but still embarrassing to have strewn across the floor during a briefing. "Oh, sorry about that," Reed says, voice flat with false apology. He doesn't move to help pick them up. Tessa kneels down and begins gathering the papers. She moves quickly, efficiently, stacking them without bothering to sort them. Her face remains calm, but there's a tightness around her eyes that wasn't there before. She's collecting the pages one by one, and as she reaches for the last sheet, Reed's boot comes down on it. Not stomping, not obvious, just a casual step that pins the paper to the ground. "You got it?" he asks, looking down at her with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Yes, sir," Tessa says quietly. She waits. He lifts his boot after a 3 count, just long enough to make the power dynamic clear. She stands, papers restacked, and returns to her position at the back of the room. Her tablet screen is still glowing. She taps it twice, enters a brief note, and sets it back down. The note reads, "Reed, paper incident, 0927 hours. She's documenting everything, every slight, every act of casual cruelty. She's building a file, and no one in this room realizes it yet." Luke finishes his presentation and sits back down to a round of nods and murmured approval. Admiral Pike leans forward, ready to move to the next agenda item, when Chief Ramos clears his throat from his station. "Sir, if I may, quick tech note." Pike nods. "Go ahead, Chief." Ramos gestures at his monitors. "We've got a minor anomaly in the access logs. Someone in this room is connected to a server I don't recognize. Encrypted handshake, but the authorization code is old. Really old. Like Cold War era old." The room goes still. Every operator in the briefing knows what that means. Unauthorized access to classified systems is a career-ending offense at best, a federal crime at worst. Luke sits up straighter. Can you trace it? Ramos taps a few keys, frowns. It's bouncing through some kind of legacy protocol. Give me a minute. While Ramos works, Luke's eyes sweep the room, looking for anyone acting suspicious. His gaze lands on Tessa. She's the outsider, the contractor, the one who doesn't belong. She's also holding a tablet that's connected to the room's Wi-Fi. Chief, Luke says slowly, where's that signal coming from? Ramos checks his screen, then checks it again. He looks confused. According to this, the back table. Every head in the room turns toward Tessa. She doesn't look up from her tablet. She's still typing, fingers moving in that same precise pattern. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. Her screen shows a progress bar that reads, Authentication sequence, 2 of 4 inputs complete. But her screen faces her. No one else can see it. Luke stands up. His voice has lost all traces of humor now. Ms. Cade, what exactly are you doing on that device? Tessa finally looks up. Her expression is neutral, almost pleasant. Taking notes, sir, for the logistics report. Chief Ramos just said you're accessing an encrypted server. I'm connected to the base Wi-Fi, sir, same as everyone else. Show me your screen. It's not a request. It's an order, delivered with the kind of authority that expects instant compliance. But Tessa doesn't move. She looks at Luke, then at Admiral Pike. Sir, she says to Pike, with respect, my work is covered under contractor confidentiality agreements. I'd need written authorization to share my screen with personnel outside my reporting chain. The room goes dead silent. What Tessa just did, politely, calmly, using proper military courtesy, was refuse a direct order from a superior officer. Except she technically didn't, because she's a civilian contractor and Luke technically isn't in her chain of command. It's a bureaucratic loophole, and she just drove a truck through it. Luke's face darkens. Admiral, permission to have Ms. Cade's device secured until we can verify. Granted, Pike says. He's not happy about any of this. He just wants the problem gone so they can get back to actual mission planning. He gestures to Chief Ramos. Chief, lock her tablet out of the network. Ramos nods and begins typing. He enters the lockout command, hits execute, and waits for the confirmation screen. It doesn't come. He tries again. Same result. He looks at his monitors, confused. Sir, her device isn't responding to network admin commands. It's like it's firewalled at a level above my access. Luke's jaw tightens. That's not possible. You're the senior systems tech on this base. I'm aware of that, sir, but her authorization code is reading as Tier 1 clearance. I don't have override privileges for Tier 1. The room erupts in murmurs. Tier 1 clearance means Strategic Intelligence Directorate. It means Black Ops funding. It means missions that get briefed to the president and no one else. And it definitely means that whoever holds that clearance outranks everyone in this room, including Admiral Pike. But that can't be right, because Tier 1 clearance doesn't get issued to contractors, it barely gets issued to flag officers, and it certainly doesn't get issued to a woman standing in the back of the room holding a clipboard. Luke takes a step toward Tessa. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but Admiral Pike holds up a hand, cutting him off. Commander Harrow, stand down. Luke stops, but his eyes are locked on Tessa like a predator who just spotted movement in the brush. Pike turns to Tessa. His voice is measured, controlled, but there's an edge underneath that suggests he's reassessing everything he thought he knew about this briefing. Ms. Cade, are you claiming Tier 1 clearance? Tessa meets his gaze, steady, calm. I'm not claiming anything, sir. My clearance level is documented in my file. Your file says you're a logistics contractor. Yes, sir. Logistics contractors don't have Tier 1 clearance. No, sir, they usually don't. The way she says it, usually don't, hangs in the air like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit the picture. Pike stares at her for a long moment. Then he turns to Lieutenant Commander Foster. Pull her full file, not the summary, the full jacket. Foster nods and begins typing rapidly on his tablet. 30 seconds pass, then a minute. Foster's expression shifts from neutral to confused to something close to alarm. Sir, Foster says slowly, her file is restricted. I don't have access. What do you mean you don't have access? You're my personnel officer. I understand that, sir, but the file is tagged with a SCIF-level restriction. I'd need separate authorization from... He squints at the screen. from the Director of Strategic Intelligence to even request access. Pike's expression goes from annoyed to genuinely concerned. Get him on the line. Sir, it's 09:30 on a Tuesday. He's probably in. I don't care if he's in a meeting with the Joint Chiefs. Get him on the line, now. While Foster works his phone, Luke isn't willing to let this go. He's built his entire identity on being the alpha in every room he enters, and right now a contractor is making him look like an idiot in front of his peers. That's not acceptable. He takes another step toward Tessa. I don't care what your file says. You're not cleared for this briefing. Admiral, I'm formally requesting that Ms. Cade be escorted out until we can verify. Noted, Commander, Pike says, voice tight. But until I hear back from Strategic Intelligence, she stays. Luke's hands curl into fists at his sides. He's a man used to getting his way, and being told to wait doesn't sit well with him. He looks at Tessa, and for the first time, there's something other than contempt in his eyes. There's uncertainty, because the possibility is starting to dawn on him that he may have just mocked someone who operates several pay grades above his understanding. Tessa, for her part, returns to her tablet. She taps the screen 3 times, swipes left, 2 more taps. On her screen, the progress bar updates. Authentication sequence, 3 of 4 inputs complete. Still, no one else can see it. CTA-2. Luke thinks he's won. He's demanded she be removed, and now he's just waiting for confirmation. But did you notice Tessa's hands never shook? Not once. Drop a comment. What do you think she's really doing here? And if you're hooked, subscribe so you don't miss what happens when that 4th input confirms. Admiral Pike is trying to regain control of his briefing. He turns back to the main screen, clears his throat. While we wait for confirmation on Ms. Cade's credentials, let's proceed with, Sir? It's Foster again, phone pressed to his ear. His face has gone pale. I have the director's office on the line. They're asking to speak with you, and they're asking about Red Veil. The room freezes. If Tier 1 clearance made people nervous, Red Veil makes them go silent. It's a term that appears in classified briefings as a footnote, always with the qualifier hypothetical protocol. It's supposedly a Cold War-era contingency plan, something cooked up by paranoid intelligence analysts in the 1960s who were convinced that Soviet sleeper agents had infiltrated every level of military command. The idea was to create an internal audit system that could identify compromised personnel without their knowledge. A test hidden inside normal operations. It was supposedly decommissioned decades ago, filed away with other relics like duck-and-cover drills and mutually assured destruction strategies. Supposedly. Pike takes the phone from Foster. Admiral Pike. The voice on the other end is female, clipped, efficient, the director's executive assistant. Admiral, I'm patching you through to Director Carmichael. Please hold for secure line authentication. A series of beeps, then a male voice, deeper, with the kind of weariness that comes from making impossible decisions for too many years. Admiral Pike, I understand you have a question about one of my personnel. Sir, we have a contractor in our war room who claims... She doesn't claim anything, Admiral. She doesn't need to. Her clearance is legitimate and significantly above your pay grade. If she's in your war room, it's because I put her there. Pike's jaw works silently for a moment. Sir, with respect, I was given no advance notice of... That's because advance notice would defeat the purpose of the audit. Audit? There's a pause on the line. When Director Carmichael speaks again, his voice carries a weight that makes it clear this conversation is over. Admiral, Red Veil is not hypothetical. It has never been hypothetical. And if it's activating in your facility, I strongly suggest you let it run its course. Director Carmichael out. The line goes dead. Pike lowers the phone slowly. He looks at Tessa, really looks at her, and for the first time since she walked into this briefing, he sees her. Not as a contractor, not as an outsider, but as someone who has been playing a game he didn't know existed. Ms. Cade, he says carefully, what is Red Veil? Tessa looks up from her tablet. Her expression hasn't changed, still calm, still neutral. I'm not authorized to brief on that protocol, sir. Not yet. Not yet? Luke cuts in. What does that mean, not yet? Tessa doesn't answer him. She's typing again, fingers moving in that precise rhythm. On her screen, visible only to her, a final command prompt appears. Execute final authorization? Yes? No. She hesitates. Just for a moment. This is the point of no return. Once she inputs the 4th command, everything changes. The room will seal, The lights will turn red, and everyone in this briefing will learn that for the past 45 minutes they've been inside a test they didn't know they were taking. But Luke won't let it go. He's crossed the room now, standing directly in front of Tessa's table. Lieutenant Briggs has moved too, positioning himself behind her, blocking her exit. It's a classic intimidation tactic. Surround the target, make them feel small. I asked you a question, Luke says, voice low and dangerous. What is Red Veil? Commander Harrow, Admiral Pike says, return to your seat. But Luke is past listening. He's tired of being confused, tired of feeling like he's missing something, tired of a contractor making him look weak in front of his team. He reaches for Tessa's tablet. Let me see what you're working on. It's the wrong move. The moment his fingers close around the edge of the tablet, Tessa moves. Her hand comes up in a smooth arc, not striking him, but redirecting his grip with a wrist turn that's so fast and so precise that Luke doesn't realize what's happened until he's stumbling half a step to the side. She's standing now, the tablet pressed to her chest, and there's suddenly 3 feet of distance between them. Luke stares at his empty hand, then at Tessa, then at his hand again. Did you just... I protected classified property, sir, Tessa says evenly, as required by my security clearance. You put your hands on me. I redirected your unauthorized attempt to access a secured device. There's a difference. Luke's face goes red. This has crossed a line. In his world, you don't get physical with a superior officer. You don't embarrass them in front of witnesses. You definitely don't do it calmly, like it's just another item on your checklist. Admiral, Luke says, voice shaking with barely controlled rage, I want her removed. Now. Pike looks at Tessa, then at Luke, then at the phone in his hand that just delivered a message from someone who outranks everyone in this room. He doesn't like what's happening, doesn't understand it, but 30 years in the Navy have taught him when to trust his instincts and when to trust the chain of command. Right now, the chain of command is telling him to let this play out. But Luke doesn't wait for permission. He nods at Lieutenant Briggs. Get security, have her escorted out. Briggs moves toward the door, but before he can reach it, Admiral Pike's voice cuts through the room like a blade. Belay that order, Lieutenant. Briggs stops, confused. He looks at Luke, then at Pike. Sir, return to your seat. Admiral, with respect, Luke starts. Commander Harrow, you are 1 word away from insubordination. Sit down. The room is so quiet you can hear the ventilation system humming through the walls. Luke stands there for a long moment, pride warring with survival instinct. Finally, survival wins. He returns to his seat, but his eyes never leave Tessa. Pike turns to Tessa. His voice is measured, controlled, but underneath it is the steel of a man who has commanded sailors in combat and doesn't appreciate being kept in the dark. Ms. Cade, I'm asking you directly. Are you activating Red Veil in my war room? Tessa meets his gaze, and for the first time since she walked into this briefing, she allows herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Not yet, sir, but soon. Her finger hovers over her tablet screen. The command prompt still glows. Execute final authorization, yes, no. She looks around the room one last time, at Luke, whose face is still red with humiliation, at Voss, who shared that photo on Signal, at Reed, who knocked her papers to the floor, at Briggs, who blocked her path, at all the men who laughed when Luke called her the coffee officer. She thinks about the past 45 minutes, every insult, every slight, every moment they thought she was weak, thought she was lost, thought she didn't belong, and she taps, yes. For exactly half a second, nothing happens. Then every screen in the war room goes black. The lights die, plunging the room into darkness, and in that darkness, just before the emergency lighting kicks in, Tessa's tablet screen glows bright red, illuminating her face with the color of blood. The screen reads, Orders, classified red, internal activation confirmed. Authentication sequence, 4 of 4 inputs complete. Protocol status, armed. Authorization level, founder. Standby for Phase 2 initialization. The emergency lights flicker on, bathing the room in crimson. And through the speakers built into the walls, a computerized voice begins to speak. Attention, Red Veil protocol is now active. All personnel remain in current positions. External communications are suspended. This facility is now under Strategic Intelligence Directorate authority. Compliance is mandatory. Resistance will be documented. Admiral Pike stands frozen at the head of the table. Luke's face has gone from red to white. and Tessa Cade, the woman they called the coffee officer, stands in the red glow of the emergency lights with her tablet in her hands and something very close to satisfaction in her eyes. The room is sealed. The test has begun. And nobody in this war room realizes yet that they're not the investigators. They're the subjects. The magnetic locks engage with a sound like thunder, compressed into a single metallic clang. Every door in the war room seals simultaneously. Main entrance, emergency exits, even the ventilation access panels. The sound reverberates through the concrete walls, and for 3 full seconds, nobody moves. 15 senior military officers sit frozen in red emergency lighting, staring at screens that have gone dark except for a single message repeating on every display. Red veil active, remain seated, protocol in progress. Commander Luke Harrow is the first to break the silence. He lunges out of his chair and crosses to the main door in 4 long strides, grabbing the handle and pulling. It doesn't budge. He pulls harder, muscles straining against steel that won't move. The door might as well be welded shut. "Chief," Luke barks at Ramos. "Override the locks, now." Chief Ramos is already typing, fingers flying across his keyboard with the desperate speed of someone who knows his expertise is about to be tested in front of everyone who matters. He enters his master override code, hits execute. The screen flashes red. Access denied. Insufficient clearance level. "That's not possible," Ramos says, voice tight. "I built half these systems. I have root access to—" His screen goes black. Then red text appears, letter by letter, like someone is typing it in real time. "Chief Petty Officer Marcus Ramos, your credentials have been temporarily suspended. You are now operating under Strategic Intelligence Directorate observation. Do not attempt further override commands." Ramos leans back from his keyboard like it just bit him. Admiral Pike moves to the conference phone at the center of the table and lifts the receiver. Dead silence. No dial tone, no static, just the empty void of a line that's been cut at a level so deep that even picking up the phone feels pointless. He sets it down carefully and turns to face Tessa. "Ms. Cade, I'm ordering you to deactivate this, whatever this is." Tessa looks up from her tablet. The red emergency lighting casts shadows across her face that make her look older, harder, like someone carved from stone who's been waiting years for this exact moment. "I can't do that, sir. Can't or won't." "Both, sir. Red Veil doesn't deactivate until it completes its audit cycle. That's by design." Luke has abandoned the door and is now advancing on Tessa with the kind of controlled fury that comes right before violence. Lieutenant Briggs moves with him, flanking left, and Captain Reed rises from his seat to cut off any retreat toward the back of the room. 3 men, all combat trained, all moving with the coordinated precision of a team that's worked together long enough to communicate without words. "I don't care what protocol you think you're running," Luke says, each word deliberate and sharp. "You sealed a classified briefing room without authorization. You're holding senior officers against their will. That's about 6 different felonies, and I'm done playing games." He reaches for Tessa's tablet again, not asking this time, just taking. But Tessa's already moving. She pivots on her left foot, turning her body 45 degrees so Luke's hand passes through empty air where the tablet was a heartbeat ago. At the same time, her right hand comes up and guides his extended arm downward with exactly enough pressure to redirect his momentum without actually striking him. It's not a block. It's not a counter. It's a wrist lock executed with such minimal force that Luke barely registers what's happening until he's bent forward at an awkward angle with Tessa controlling his center of gravity. She holds him there for exactly 1 second, long enough to make the point. Then she releases and steps back, putting the table between them. Luke straightens, face flushed with humiliation and rage. "You just assaulted I protected classified equipment using minimal necessary force," Tessa says, voice level. "That's within my legal authority under Strategic Intelligence Directorate guidelines. If you'd like to file a complaint, you're welcome to do so once the audit concludes." Briggs steps forward, fists clenched. "Ma'am, I don't know who you think you are, but—" "Lieutenant Briggs." Admiral Pike's voice cuts through the tension like a blade through fog. "Stand down." Briggs freezes. He looks at Pike, confused. "Sir, she just—" "I said stand down." Pike's tone brooks no argument. He's still trying to make sense of what's happening, still trying to maintain some semblance of command, but 30 years of experience is telling him that escalating to violence is the worst possible move right now. "Everyone return to your seats, now." Slowly, reluctantly, the officers comply. Luke takes his chair but sits on the edge of it, body coiled like a spring under too much pressure. Commander Voss has his phone out, trying to send a message, but the screen just shows "network unavailable" in red letters. The computerized voice speaks again through the overhead speakers. Phase 1 complete. Behavioral baseline established. Initiating Phase 2. Identity verification and clearance authentication. Every screen in the war room flickers back to life simultaneously. But instead of tactical maps or satellite imagery, they now display something different. Personnel files, photos, service records, and at the top of each screen, a name. The largest screen, the one at the front of the room that everyone can see, shows a file that makes Admiral Pike go very still. It's Tessa's file, but it's not the file he saw an hour ago. That file, the one that listed her as a civilian logistics contractor with no prior service, is gone. This file is different, older, and it's marked with security classifications so high that Pike has only seen them twice in his career, both times during briefings that required him to leave his phone in a different building. The photo shows Tessa in military uniform. Not Navy, something else. The patch on her shoulder is partially redacted, but what remains visible shows an emblem Pike recognizes from classified briefings. The seal of the Strategic Intelligence Directorate, the Black Ops division that officially doesn't exist and unofficially runs operations in places the United States government will never acknowledge. Below the photo, text begins to populate the screen line by line. Name: Cade, Tessa Marie. Rank: Commander, 05, classified designation. Service branch: Strategic Intelligence Directorate. Clearance level: Tier 1. Omega Access Specialization. Operational Security Audit, Internal Affairs. Current assignment: Red Veil Protocol, Architect and Principal Investigator. Commissioned 2018. Operational history: redacted. The last line makes several officers lean forward, squinting at the screen as if reading it again will make it make more sense. Project role: Founder, Operation Red Veil. Luke is staring at the screen like it just told him the laws of physics are optional. That's not possible. Red Veil was developed in the 1960s. She's 32 years old. Red Veil was proposed in the 60s, Tessa corrects, still standing at the back of the room with her tablet in hand. It was never funded, never built. The technology didn't exist. But 7 years ago, someone asked if we could build it now. If we could create an internal audit system that could identify compromised personnel not through interrogation or surveillance, but through behavioral psychology. A test hidden inside normal operations. A way to measure ego under power. She taps her tablet, and the main screen changes. Now it shows a video feed, grainy, date-stamped 2018, of a younger Tessa standing in what looks like a government hearing room. She's in uniform, standing before a panel of people whose faces are blurred for security reasons. Audio begins to play. Panel member 1, voice distorted. The concern, Commander Cade, is that any audit system can be corrupted. The watchers can be compromised just as easily as those they watch. How do you prevent that? Younger Tessa: You don't prevent it, sir. You design for it. Red Veil doesn't rely on human judgment. It relies on pattern recognition, micro-behaviors that indicate psychological instability, abuse of authority, or susceptibility to compromise. The algorithm doesn't care about rank or reputation. It just measures ego compliance. Panel member 2. And what happens when someone fails this test? Younger Tessa: Then we document it, build a case, and remove them from positions where their ego can cause operational failures. Panel member 3. What if you're the compromised one? What if your ego is the problem? Younger Tessa doesn't hesitate. Then the system will expose me too. That's the point, sir. No one is above the audit, not even the person who designed it. The video stops. The room is silent, except for the hum of electronics and the labored breathing of men whose understanding of reality just shifted underneath them. Chief Ramos is the first to speak. His voice is quiet, almost awed. You built this. The whole thing. You weren't sent here to activate it. You created it. Tessa nods once. 7 years ago, I pitched Red Veil to the National Security Council. They approved it with one condition: that I be removed from the official personnel database to prevent external compromise. My service record was sealed, my rank was classified, and for the past 7 years I've been moving through military installations as a civilian contractor, watching how people behave when they think no one important is watching them. She adjusts the bandage on her wrist, and this time she doesn't try to hide what's underneath. She peels back the tape completely, revealing what's been there all along. The tattoo. It's not large, maybe 2 inches across, positioned on the inside of her left wrist where it would normally be covered by sleeves or watch bands. The design is geometric, angular lines forming a pattern that looks almost like a circuit board, but at the center is an emblem that several people in the room recognize, the Strategic Intelligence Directorate seal, and beneath it, in small, precise lettering, RV Architect 01. The room erupts in sharp inhales and muttered profanity that's quickly swallowed back. Chief Ramos actually stands at attention, an automatic response drilled into him over 28 years of service. "That's founder-level designation," he says, voice hoarse. "That ink is issued to maybe 5 people in the entire intelligence community." Tessa rolls her sleeve back down, covering the tattoo again. 4 people, actually. I'm one of them. Luke has gone from red to white to a color that doesn't exist in nature. He's gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles are bone white. You've been running an investigation on us this entire time, every briefing, Not an investigation, Tessa interrupts. An audit. There's a difference. Investigations start with suspicion. Audits start with data. Admiral Pike has found his voice again, though it sounds like it's being dragged over gravel. "The director said Red Veil was activating in my facility. He didn't say it had been active for weeks." "Actually, sir, it's been active for 6 months. I was assigned to Coronado last March. This briefing was just the final phase, the stress test." Commander Voss makes a strangled sound. 6 months. You've been documenting us for 6 months. Not just you, Commander. Everyone in this room, every officer at this base. Behavioral patterns, decision-making under pressure, treatment of subordinates, adherence to protocol when you think no one's checking. Red Veil has been running in the background the entire time, collecting data, building profiles. She taps her tablet again. The screens around the room change once more, and this time they show something that makes several officers go very, very still. It's footage, security camera feeds, chat logs, photos, all time-stamped, all labeled, all organized into neat categorical folders that spell out 6 months of documented behavior in excruciating detail. One screen shows Luke in the gym 3 months ago, berating a junior sailor who couldn't complete a pull-up, calling him weak, worthless, a waste of uniform. Another screen shows Voss sharing memes in the Signal group, not just the one from today, but dozens of them, all making jokes at the expense of junior personnel or contractors or anyone Voss decided was beneath him. A third screen shows Captain Reed in his office, on a phone call that was supposed to be private, discussing classified operational details with someone whose name is redacted, but whose company logo, a defense contractor specializing in maritime security, is very much visible. And a fourth screen shows Luke again, this time in the war room 2 weeks ago, deliberately giving incorrect tactical information to a junior analyst just to see if they'd catch the mistake. They didn't. He laughed about it afterward. The evidence goes on and on, screen after screen, a cascade of small cruelties and ethical compromises and judgment failures that individually might mean nothing but collectively paint a picture of systemic rot. Luke stares at the screen showing his own face, his own voice, his own words. "This is illegal. You can't just surveil." "I can, actually," Tessa says. "Every person at this installation signed a security agreement acknowledging that they may be subject to monitoring for operational security purposes. You signed it the day you arrived, Commander." Page 17, paragraph 4, subsection C. The screens flicker again. Now they show signed documents, legal forms. Every officer in this room signed away their expectation of privacy the moment they walked onto a classified military installation. They just never thought it would matter because they never thought anyone was watching. Tessa turns to face Luke directly. "Red Veil wasn't built to catch traitors through interrogation, Commander. It was built to measure who would abuse power when they thought no one was watching. I wore the coffee officer disguise because arrogance reveals itself only to those it believes beneath it." She pauses, lets that sink in, then continues. "You didn't fail a test. You failed your own character. Every joke at my expense, every time you undermined my credentials, every time you mocked someone you saw as weaker than you. Red Veil tracked all of it, not for punishment, for pattern recognition." Luke's mouth works silently. He looks like a man watching his career collapse in real time. "Because betrayal doesn't start with selling secrets," Tessa continues, voice steady and cold and absolutely certain. "It starts with believing you're above accountability. It starts with laughing at someone because you can. It starts with small ethical compromises that feel harmless until they're not." She taps her tablet one final time. The main screen changes to show a document. It's thick, 47 pages according to the page counter at the bottom, and it's titled Behavioral Analysis and Security Risk Assessment, Commander Luke Harrow. You've been flagged as a security risk for 4 months, Commander, but I needed to be sure. I needed documented evidence of psychological instability under pressure. So I let you laugh. I let you mock. I let you think I was powerless, and you gave me everything I needed. The document begins to auto-scroll. Luke's eyes track the text like watching a car crash in slow motion. Page after page of behavioral analysis, psychological markers, security violations. And there, on page 12, a section titled, Unauthorized Disclosure of Classified Tactical Information to Non-Cleared Personnel. It includes transcripts, call logs, bank transfers from a maritime security contractor to an offshore account in Luke's name, dates and times and amounts that add up to a pattern no lawyer could argue away. Admiral Pike reads the screen and his face goes gray. Holy cow, he breathes. Luke, tell me this isn't real. Luke says nothing. His jaw works silently, but no words come out. The main door unlocks with a heavy clunk that echoes through the war room. It swings open, and 2 people in dark suits step inside. Federal agents, badges visible on their belts, moving with the calm efficiency of people who have done this many times before. The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with steel gray hair and eyes that miss nothing, approaches the table and pulls out credentials. FBI Counterintelligence Division. She looks at Luke. Commander Luke Harrow, you're under arrest for unauthorized disclosure of classified information, selling tactical intelligence to private contractors, and violation of the Espionage Act. You have the right to remain silent. Luke doesn't resist, doesn't argue. He just sits there as they apply handcuffs, read him his rights, and guide him toward the door. As he passes Tessa, he stops, looks at her, opens his mouth like he's about to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a curse, maybe just a question about how he missed this. But no words come. The agents guide him out, and the door closes behind them with a finality that makes several officers flinch. The room is silent for a long, long moment. Then Admiral Pike turns to Tessa. How many others? In this room, just Commander Harrow for federal charges, but Commander Voss, Captain Reed, and Lieutenant Briggs are flagged for mandatory ethics review. They didn't commit crimes, but they demonstrated behavioral patterns consistent with abuse of authority and systemic bullying. They'll be temporarily reassigned pending completion of remedial training. Voss's phone buzzes. He looks down at it and his face goes pale. The message is from his commanding officer. Report to my office immediately. Bring your phone and all personal electronics. Reed and Briggs receive similar notifications within seconds of each other. Pike runs a hand over his face. He looks older suddenly, like the weight of command just got measurably heavier. What happens now? Now, Tessa says, we fix the system. She walks to the front of the room, standing where Luke stood an hour ago when he was confidently explaining tactics to people he thought couldn't challenge him. She sets her tablet on the table and the screens change one last time. Now they show graphs, data analysis, behavioral trend lines spanning 6 months across every department on base, and the trends are not good. Harassment complaints suppressed. Junior personnel leaving at rates 30% higher than national average. Ethical violations reported but never investigated. A culture of silence maintained by people who confused authority with wisdom. Red Veil identified systemic problems at Coronado, Tessa says. Commander Harrow was the most visible symptom, but he wasn't the disease. The disease is a culture that protects ego over integrity, that values hierarchy over accountability, that punishes people for speaking up and rewards people for keeping quiet. She looks at Pike. Admiral, you're not under investigation, but your command is, and you have a choice. You can work with us to fix it, or you can be replaced by someone who will. Pike meets her gaze. For a long moment, he says nothing. Then slowly, he nods. What do you need? CTA 3. The room that laughed at her rank just watched her rewrite the chain of command. Luke is in federal custody. The culture that protected him is being dismantled in real time. If you want to see how Phase 2 unfolds across 12 more bases, smash that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to remember. Never underestimate the quiet professional. Part 2 of this story, the global audit that's coming next. Trust me, you'll want to see what Tower 4 really means. Over the next 45 minutes, Tessa outlines the remediation plan. It's comprehensive, it's brutal, and it's non-negotiable. First, mandatory ethics training for all 04 and above, not the usual PowerPoint presentation where everyone zones out after slide 3. Real scenario-based training where officers are put in situations that test their judgment when no one's watching. Pass rate has to be 85% or higher. Fail, and you're reassigned to a position where you can't damage people. Second, anonymous reporting channel implemented immediately, not routed through chain of command. Direct line to the Inspector General's office, protected by whistleblower laws, with quarterly audits to ensure it's actually being used and not just window dressing. Third, quarterly behavioral assessments for all command personnel, not self-reported, not peer-reviewed, conducted by external auditors who have no stake in protecting careers or reputations. Results go into permanent personnel files. Fourth, immediate review of all harassment complaints filed in the past 2 years, not by the same people who dismissed them the first time, by external investigators with authority to overturn previous decisions and recommend disciplinary action retroactively. Admiral Pike listens to all of it, his expression unreadable. When Tessa finishes, he's quiet for a long time. Then he surprises her. "I should have seen it," he says quietly. "Harrow's behavior, the culture, all of it. That's on me." Tessa doesn't offer empty reassurance. "Yes, sir, it is. But leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to fix what's broken even when it's uncomfortable." Pike nods slowly. Then he does something that makes every remaining officer in the room sit up straighter. He stands at attention and renders a proper military salute. "Commander Cade, I apologize for failing to recognize operational security when it stood in front of me, and I apologize for allowing an environment where someone of your expertise and rank felt compelled to operate undercover just to do your job." Tessa doesn't return the salute. She's technically in civilian cover, but she acknowledges it with a nod of respect. "Apology accepted, Admiral. But I need more than words. I need documented commitment to change." "You'll have it." Pike turns to the remaining officers. Commander Voss looks like he wants to melt into his chair. Captain Reed is staring at his hands. Lieutenant Briggs has the expression of someone reassessing every decision he's made in the past 6 months. "Gentlemen," Pike says, voice hard, "you're looking at the future of how we operate. Commander Cade didn't just expose one bad actor. She exposed all of us. Every time we laughed at someone we thought was beneath us. Every time we cut corners because we thought no one was checking. Every time we protected our ego instead of our integrity. That ends today." He picks up the conference phone, the one that was dead 10 minutes ago but is now mysteriously working again, and dials a number from memory. "This is Admiral Pike. I need to speak with the Secretary of the Navy. Yes, I'll hold." While he waits, Tessa gathers her materials. She closes her tablet, tucks it under her arm, and starts toward the door, but Chief Ramos stands and blocks her path. For a moment, there's tension. Is he going to challenge her? Try to stop her from leaving? Then he stands at attention and salutes. "Ma'am, thank you for your service, and thank you for—" He struggles to find the words. "For reminding us what integrity looks like." Tessa returns his salute this time. "Thank you, Chief, for being the one person in this room who saw something wrong and didn't just ignore it." She's referring to the moment earlier when Ramos noticed her keystroke pattern, when he squinted at her tattoo, when his instincts told him something didn't add up. He didn't voice those concerns. Red Veil needed to run its course, but he noticed. And in a room full of people who chose blindness, that mattered. Petty Officer Hayes stands next, offering a salute of his own. "Ma'am, for what it's worth, I never thought you were just a contractor." Tessa smiles, the first genuine smile she's allowed herself all day. "I know, Hayes. That's why Red Veil flagged you as command material. You'll be receiving transfer orders next week. Congratulations on your promotion." Hayes blinks. What? Red Veil doesn't just identify problems, Petty Officer. It identifies solutions. People with integrity. People who do the right thing even when it costs them socially. You didn't laugh when everyone else did. That's noted in your file." She moves past him toward the door. Admiral Pike is still on the phone, voice low and serious as he explains to someone powerful that Coronado just failed an audit, and here's what he's going to do about it. Tessa steps into the hallway outside the war room. The air feels different out here. Lighter, like stepping out of a pressure chamber. She walks down the corridor toward the parking lot, heels clicking on polished floor tiles, and nobody stops her. Nobody challenges her credentials. The 2 Marines at the security checkpoint actually nod respectfully as she passes. She reaches her vehicle, a battered Jeep Wrangler that's seen better years, and climbs inside. The interior smells like coffee and old leather. She tosses her tablet onto the passenger seat and sits there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, breathing in and out in that same 4-4-4 pattern. Then she opens the glove compartment. Inside, beneath a stack of maps and registration papers, is a metal card. It's brushed steel, about the size of a credit card, with text etched into the surface so precisely it could only have been done by laser. Operation Red Veil. Phase 2. Global Simulation Protocol Test. Site Alpha. Coronado. Complete authorization. Proceed to next activation. Next site. Redacted. She pulls out her tablet and opens a secure application that requires 3 separate biometric scans before it unlocks. The screen displays a world map. 17 locations are marked with red dots scattered across North America, Europe, and Asia. Each dot represents a military installation. Each installation represents another war room full of officers who think they're above accountability. Coronado's dot is now green, complete. 16 remain red, waiting. She taps the screen and a message window opens. The recipient is listed only as Tower 4. She types quickly. Alpha complete. Subject Harrow in federal custody. Systemic remediation underway. Admiral Pike cooperative. Request authorization for Bravo site activation. She hits send. The message encrypts itself into something that looks like random noise, then vanishes into the digital ether. 30 seconds later, a response appears. Authorization granted. Bravo site. Norfolk. Scheduled for activation. 0800 Monday. New cover identity. Supply chain auditor. Legends package attached. Well done, architect. Tower 4. Sends regards. Tessa closes the app and stares out the windshield at Coronado Base. She can see the war room building from here, a squat concrete structure designed to withstand anything short of a direct nuclear strike. Inside that building, careers are ending. Policies are changing. People are being held accountable for the first time in years. And she feels tired. Not satisfied, not victorious, just tired. Because this was one base, one commander, one room full of people who needed to be reminded that rank doesn't equal righteousness. And there are 16 more just like it. 16 more times she'll have to stand in the back of a room and absorb mockery and wait for men to reveal who they are when they think no one's watching. Her phone buzzes. A text from a number she doesn't have saved but recognizes immediately. Director Carmichael. Saw the report. Luke's in custody. Pike is cooperating. You did good work. She doesn't respond, just sets the phone down and starts the engine. As she pulls out of the parking lot, her radio crackles with static, then clears. A voice comes through, computerized, gender-neutral, impossible to trace. Architect 1, this is Tower 4. Phase 2 is green-lit. Norfolk activation sequence begins in 72 hours. Your Legends package is ready. New name, new cover, new test. Tessa keys the mic. Acknowledged Tower 4, beginning transit. Architect 1, the system worked. You built something that holds power accountable. That matters. Tessa doesn't answer immediately. She's thinking about Luke's face when the handcuffs went on, about Admiral Pike's salute, about the 16 red dots still glowing on her map. Finally, she keys the mic again. It only matters if we finish what we started. Agreed. Tower 4 out. The radio goes silent. Tessa drives off base, past the guard gate, onto the highway that leads north toward wherever Norfolk is, and whatever war room is waiting there. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that look almost like warning lights. She thinks about the question that Senator asked her 7 years ago during that hearing, the question that made it into the video footage she showed the war room today. What if you're the compromised one? What if your ego is the problem? She'd answered then that the system would expose her too, that no one was above the audit, and she'd meant it. But now, driving alone with 16 more installations to audit and 16 more rooms full of officers to test, she wonders if she's starting to enjoy it. The reveal. The moment when people realize they've been tested and failed. The look on their faces when power shifts and they understand they were never in control. Is that ego? Is that the beginning of the same corruption she's hunting? She doesn't know, but Red Veil is watching her too, tracking her behavioral patterns, measuring her stress responses, building a profile just like everyone else. And if she crosses the line, if she starts abusing the power she has, if she starts enjoying the cruelty instead of just enduring it, the system will flag her, document her, and remove her. That's the design. That's the whole point. No one is above accountability, not even the architect. She pulls onto Interstate 5, heading north, and her tablet chimes with an incoming file. The Legends package for Norfolk. Her new cover identity, her new name, her new reason to stand in the back of a room and let people underestimate her. She doesn't open it yet, just drives. And in the rearview mirror, Coronado gets smaller and smaller until it vanishes completely, leaving only the road ahead and the question that won't stop echoing in her mind. How many times can you test people's integrity before you lose your own? She doesn't have an answer, but she has 16 more chances to find out. The highway stretches ahead under a sky going dark, and somewhere in that darkness, Tower 4 is watching, waiting, measuring, and the audit continues. Justice isn't loud, it's patient, and it's been watching since the first person laughed.
Every soldier carry a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to MVB Story for more.